Our final reader tonight is senior editor of Booklist magazine. His debut novel, The Monster Variations, was selected for the New York Public Library's 100 Best Stuff for Teens. Fangoria magazine called his Bram Stoker finalist. Odyssey Award-winning second novel, Rotters, a new horror classic. He's the director of 6 feature films, including Sheriff, the 2006 season premiere of PBS's Emmy-winning series Independent Lens, and Musician, a 2007 New York Times Critics Pick. His newest novel is the Junior Library Guild selection SCOWLER. And coming next year is Troll Hunters, co-written with filmmaker Guillermo del Toro. We're very fortunate to have him here with us tonight, if he's still willing. So please join me in offering a thunderous welcome to Mr. Daniel Kraus.
Hi, I'm Guillermo del Toro. This night was never supposed to happen, and I'll describe to you why. A pet peeve of mine, and probably yours, is the discussion of how hard it is to write something. I can't stand it myself. That said, I'm going to tell you that this was a very hard book for me to write. The books I've written previous to it and the books I've written since it have all been relatively delightful experiences. This one, for whatever reason, probably a mix of personal things and professional challenges and where I was as a writer at the time, was a very difficult process, and something happened that never has happened to me before, which I abandoned the book 3 times, in fact. And finally, my wife, Amanda, right here, the hero of this story, suggested that I do something else very unusual. I usually just like to write at home and be very consistent with my writing patterns. She suggested I go find a place to write that was away from home and finish this manuscript that Random House was sort of waiting for, and I was overdue, and again, it's not something I do. I'm a very reliable writer in that sense. So I went up to, rented a car, and we found the least interesting, inspiring place possible, which is a little off-ramp in Wisconsin. It's some crappy hotel off of the highway, so there could be nothing possibly to distract me. And so although this book takes place in the dead heat of summer over a period of 2 days, it was December, and a blizzard hit. And total The Shining type situation occurred, where the hotel was snowed in, and nobody could leave the hotel. So not only was I on an off-ramp in the middle of Wisconsin on the highway, I couldn't get out of the hotel. So, but this, is what I needed. So I set to finishing the book. Random House bought it. That was nice, but mostly I was glad to just get it out of my life. And I never intended to do any kind of publicity for it or any readings for it. It was just a difficult book, and I wanted it to get out, and if people liked it, great, and if people didn't like it, I don't care. Just going to kind of move on. And one thing along with it, of course, was that I was going to do no readings at all. And then Bill, a man I do not know, started what in my mind was like a 2-year process of emailing me, asking if I would come to a series, and I came up with a long series of really good excuses why not to do it, and they were real excuses. I would just say I couldn't make it, and the real reasons would be, they'd be real, but it would be because there's like a movie I wanted to watch or something. I would find any reason whatsoever not to do this reading. But here I am. So I'm going to read from it. The book is called SCOWLER. I'm going to read a very short segment from it. As luck would have it, I'm coming off 4 days of other book events, and my voice is hanging by a thread, so that's another good reason why this is going to be very short, another good excuse. And at these, thank you. And I will add, at this book event, there was a sort of a publicly attended sort of forum where people were putting together the list of best books of the year, and somebody nominated SCOWLER, and somebody else immediately got up and said this was a morally repugnant book that everyone should be ashamed of reading, and everyone should try to get their money back from the book. So that was great. I mean, for years I've been waiting for the proper amount of moral outrage. So I'm real excited about that. So, quick plot synopsis. Since this is not a short story, I have to give you a tiny bit of idea what this is about. It's when how do I start this? When he was 10 years old, Rye, the main character in this book, his father, who is the patriarch of his family, lives in this family farm that's in Iowa, middle of Iowa. His dad, essentially, who's always been a little bit maniacal, kind of loses it and does something very, very terrible to his mother and to the boy. And, I don't actually have to set up the whole book, because I only have to set up this little bit. So I'll just go this far. The boy is being chased into the woods. He's 10 years old, and his father has a big wooden baseball bat, Louisville Slugger. He's chasing him through the woods, and it's January. It's freezing. The boy is freezing to death. And the passage I'm about to read, he is about to give up. In fact, he's given up, and he's lying on the snow, and is waiting for his dad, who he can hear blasting through branches in the distance, waiting for his dad to show up and just take care of him. And when I mean take care of him, I mean, possibly kill him. And this is when he discovers 3 objects in his pocket that he had put there as they were toys, 3 toys. He put there in his pocket because he thought he was running away from home before his dad came home and started chasing him. These 3 toys he imbues with magical personalities. He suffered a head wound, he's delusional. He starts seeing them as actual imaginary friends. And these 3 friends help him out of this dangerous situation. And then in the bulk of the book, when he's 19, the father gets out of jail, and the boy is forced to resurrect these 3 imaginary friends to help him defend his family. But I'm going to read the part when he's 10 years old, and he reaches into his pocket, and for the first time, discovers these friends. It'll be short. He laughed at the motley sight. A gathering of otter bedfellows would have been difficult to produce. The first one was Mr. Furrington, a portly turquoise teddy bear with a sewed-on bow tie and bowler hat. He had been a baby gift, and Rye had warm memories of taking him along to the bath and potty and dropping him into both when Furrington asked to approve the contents. This cheap wad of cloth and stuffing had guided him through scary bedtimes, ominous mealtimes, and episodes of sickness and worry. Marvin had implemented a zero-tolerance policy on stuffed animals a few years back. Marvin is the dad. And Rye had placed each offender in a garbage sack with eyes clear and dry, though his mother for some reason had cried. That night, Furrington reappeared in Rye's sock drawer, and though Rye knew it was his mother who had salvaged the toy, he preferred to imagine Furrington himself scaling the trash can and brushing off the filth and regal distaste before readjusting his hat and strolling back into the house. To keep him hidden, Rye put him in the cardboard toy box, where men with guns and mutant villains soon overwhelmed him. Jesus Christ was the second toy. Rye recalled that the figure had come as an unexpected bonus from the stupefying chants and paper-craft drills of Sunday school. Jesus Christ was an 8-inch bendy figure in the Gumby mold, entirely pink save a white swaddle of cloth around his midsection, a brown beard of nodular texture, and the painted dashes and dots of his face in stigmata. When Rye had seen the Jesuses being handed out, he felt a rush of fantasy. He would break out the blue and black markers from the arts and crafts bin and turn Jesus Christ into Marvel Comics Reed Richards. AKA Mr. Fantastic. It was a disappointment when he got his hands on Jesus Christ and found that he did not stretch at all. He only bent. Rye had stuck Jesus Christ's legs behind his head and knotted the arms, and when he released the plastic Messiah from his tortures, the limbs snapped back into place. There was a disarming intensity to Jesus Christ's pupilless white eyes. And yet there was also something peaceful in the blankness. Rye felt a quiet. In truth, the contemplation of Jesus Christ's figures was the closest thing to a religious experience Rye had ever had at church. This did not mean that Jesus Christ was fun to play with. Rye gave up after just a few attempts. Throwing him out, though, seemed like sacrilege, and over time, when he saw the pink skin peeking through layers of more popular toys, Rye could not shake the hunch that there remained in Jesus Christ a Mr. Fantastic potential. The third and last toy was SCOWLER. Rye stared at it, fearful of making any sudden move. Mr. Furrington and Jesus Christ he may have remembered if asked to mentally catalog the contents of the cardboard toy box. SCOWLER, though, he had willfully forgotten. It was a toy only in the broad technical sense. There was nothing fun about it. Rye had found it in a dusty apple box that his mother had brought home from an estate sale. He had been lifting aside yellowed issues of Life and swirling a hand through a metal soup of pulleys and hinges and buckles, when suddenly he saw a mouth gaping up at him. Rye withdrew the figure carefully. Its insides crunched like cornmeal. It was naked and humanoid, a collection of rancid lumps, and no more than 4 inches long, with half of that length owing to its cone-shaped head. The waxy texture of its skin suggested oilcloth, and though its intended color was yellow, it had bleached to a hue almost flesh-like. There was a crisp outer film that had once adhered to the skin with waterproof tightness, but now blistered away like sausage casing. Dominating the head was a huge downturned mouth, a dry open hole defended by dozens of daggered teeth made of seashells. Shallow depressions, imprinted by the artisan's thumb, served as its empty eye sockets. Its abbreviated limbs were gnarled like roots, and tiny nails erupted from repair zones like patches of iron acne. Sharp sawed-off pipe edges poked from the ankles and wrists, evidence of the thing's metal skeleton. It felt to Rye like a dreadful talisman, for what purpose he did not care to know. He had begun to lower it for instant burial when his mother craned her neck over his shoulder. "Look at that," she said. "That's folk art." "It's dirty," Rye said. Attacking the object's cleanliness was a savvy tactic. "Someone worked hard on that," JoBeth said. "Look at the workmanship. Look at that slip stitching. There's not a single gap between those teeth. Somebody loved this little guy." "I don't like it." "Well, you're spoiled. The person who made this probably didn't have money for real toys. They had to make do with their imagination, whatever they had handy. You keep it. I bet it outlives every other toy you have." Rye rolled her over in his palm. Its weight seemed deceptive. "What does it do?" "What does it do? Does it have to do something?" She leaned over and squinted. "He scowls." "He scowls? In fact, he looks like you." He turned to her in alarm. "What do you mean?" Smiling, she pointed at her son's expression. "Right there, see? You and SCOWLER are like 2 peas in a pod." Rye looked down at the thing. The eye holes offered nothing. "Okay," he said. He set SCOWLER on the floor and later placed him face down at the bottom of the cardboard toy box. He assumed it would go missing along with the turquoise teddy bear and the bendy religious icon. Through brisk shuffling of the box contents, it would even dismember and disintegrate. Death, that's what boxes were for. Only it didn't die. SCOWLER showed up repeatedly throughout the years, its hollow eyes and voracious mouth poking their ways into the topmost space of the toy box. The knives of its exposed skeleton spearing gun belts and jetpacks, where I would extricate these entanglements and assure himself they were accidental. The fat one, the tall one, and the small one, where I fanned out the trio beneath the moonlight. How odd that he would spend his final moments with these companions. He gathered them to his chest and struggled for the icy breath that would be one of his last. Thanks.
And that concludes. Thank you very much. That concludes Tuesday Funk for this day, July 2nd, 2013.